Welcome back to Saxon Math. This is lesson 41, finding a percent of a number. To describe part of a group, we often use a fraction or a percent. So here's some examples. 3/4 of the students voted for Imelda. Tim answered 80% of the questions correctly. We also use percents to describe financial situations, like music CDs were on sale for 30% off the regular price. The sales tax rate is 7%. The bank pays 3% interest on savings accounts. When we're asked to find a certain percent of a number, we usually change the percent to either a fraction or a decimal before performing the calculations. So 25% means 25 out of 100, which reduces to 1/4. 5% means 5 out of 100, which reduces to 1/20th. Remember that percent is really a fraction whose denominator is 100. So this is a denominator, has a denominator of 100. It's 5% means 5 over 100. Can be reduced. Percent is also easily changed to a decimal number. Study the following changes from percent to fraction to decimal. 25% can be 25 hundredths, which is also 25 hundredths as a decimal. 5% is 5 hundredths, which is also 5 hundredths as a decimal. They look like this when looking at a grid. You can see that 25 hundredths is the same as 25 shaded spaces, or 1/4 of this whole. These are 100 squares here. And here there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shaded spaces to represent 5 out of 100. We say that the same non-zero digits are in both the decimal and the percent forms of a number. In the decimal form, however, the decimal point is shifted 2 places to the left. So in this case, you can see the decimal place is 2 places to the left, 2 places to the left here. Let's look at example 1. Write 15 hundredths in decimal form. So this is simply 15 over, if you look at it, it kind of reminds you, it's like a 1 and 2 zeros, 15 over 100. So it's 15 hundredths as a fraction, which is the same, if you know how to read decimals, would simply be 15 hundredths. So 15 hundredths means 15 hundredths. You have to know that this is the hundredths place with the THS. If you were to use a grid to show 15 hundredths, you would just have 15 of these shaded. So it'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So that'd be 15 hundredths if it was shaded that way. Okay, let's look at example 2. Write 75 hundredths as a reduced fraction. Again, this is 75 as the numerator, denominator is 100. Reduce that. These are both divisible by 25 because 75 divided by 25 equals 3 and 100 divided by 25 is 4. That's a reduced fraction of 75%. That equals 75%. It's 3/4, which is also 75 hundredths. All right, let's look at example 3. What number is 75% of 20? All right, key right here, if you don't know what of means, it's multiply. So you could look at this as 75% as, well, we know what 75% as a reduced fraction is 3/4, and it's times 20. Or it could also be the same as 75 hundredths times 20. Either one you want to choose will work. It'll get you to your final answer. We can translate this problem into an equation, changing the percent to either a fraction or a decimal. So here's a fraction form, here's a decimal form. We use the letter for what number an equal sign is for is and multiplication sign for of. So what number is 75% of 20? That would look like this. If it's percent to a decimal, it would be what number is 75% of 20, would be like that. So the unknown that we have is what number. So letter N, whatever it may be. Same thing here. So here it is, the multiplication problem, and here's the decimal problem. We show that both the fraction form and the decimal form, often one form is easier to calculate than the other form. So you can see that 3/4 times 20 is going to be 15, because this would be like 20 over 1. And I could actually reduce this immediately, noticing that 4 divided by 4 is 1, 20 divided by 4 is 5. And now all I'm left with is 3 times 5 in the numerator and 1 times 1 in the denominator. 3 times 5 is 15. 75 hundredths times 20 would be the same as, if you recognize this, would be similar to like $1.50. If it was 75 cents times 2, that's $1.50. And if you were to move the decimal one place over, you would end up with $15. So you can see 15 would be the answer in that case too. Or you just have to work it out with multiplication, hang the 0 off the end there. This would be 10. This would be 14 plus 1, which would make 15. I'd move the decimal 2 places to the left, and that'd be the same answer. 15 is the same as 15. So since 75% of 20 is 15, what is 25% of 20? Well, 25% of 20 is just 1/4 of 20. So that'd be the same as 20 divided by 4, which equals 5. Which is easier to compute, 3/4 times 20 or 75 hundredths times 20? And why? Well, just think about it. For me personally, I think 3/4 times 20 is easier, but I can see it happening easy enough, and if I had 75 hundredths times 20 as well. But my first thought is to go, I recognize that this would be the same as, I could flip these around. I could have 3 over 1 times 20 over 4. And I know what 20 over 4 is. That's the same as 5. So 3 times 5 is 15. So for me, personally, I like the fraction form. But some people might say, no, I work with the decimals better, and that's better for me. And that's fine and dandy. It'll get you the same answer in the end. Example 4, Jamal correctly answered 80% of the 25 questions. How many questions did he answer correctly? So again, of means times. 80% as a decimal, it'd just be this. 80% times 25. Or I could change that into a fraction, and that would be the same as 8/10, would be 80%. Also, and that would also reduce to, let's see, both are divisible by 2, so that'd be 4/5. Ooh, I like this. I'm liking the way this is working out. I like to use 4/5 now, and then I'm going to take that times 25. And why? Because I can switch these, do a little switcheroo here. I can have 25 over 5 times 4 over 1. And I know what 25 over 5 is. That's 5. So then I end up with this, 5 times 4, and that equals 20 in the end. So the questions he answered correctly, 80%, would be 20 out of the 25. So we want to find 80% of 25. You can change it to a fraction form or a decimal form. So there they are in both, and you can calculate those however you wish. If you like the fraction format easier, go with it. If you like the decimal format, recognize that you just have to do this, 80% times 25. I'd probably just put 25 up here actually. And then I'd get 40. This would be 16, that'd be 20, and then I'd move the decimal over, and the answer would be 20. So either way, it's pretty easy. We can find that Jamal answered 20 questions correctly. All right, example 5. The sales tax rate was 6%. Find the tax on a $12 purchase. Then find the total price, including that tax. So if you have 6% of $12, you just have to actually multiply it out. So it'd be 6%, which is 6 hundredths, times 12, which is 72 cents. So this is the tax That's just the tax right there. And if I need to add the tax to the total that we started with here, it would be $12.72 for the final answer. So sales tax is charged on the sale of an item. It is some percent of the item's purchase price. So sales tax, most of the time it's about 7.5% North Dakota. In other states or other counties or districts in the United States, it might be as high as 10 or 11%. All right, let's look at example 6. Oh, sorry, I guess we don't have any more examples. Let's give it a shot here. So write each percent in problems A through F as reduced fractions. Letter A. This would be a reduced fraction of 1/2. If you didn't know that, letter A would have been 50 over 100, but you have to reduce. You could take them both divided by 10 and you'd end up with 5/10. And then you have to recognize there's both divisible by 5, which would be 1/2. Letter B, 10%. Your answer should have been 1/10, because in letter B, you know that 10 is the same out of 100 is the same as, if you take the zeros off, you'd have 1/10, and that's the reduced fraction. Letter C, 25%. 25% as a fraction is 25 over 100, but reduce it, you'd end up with 1/4. So for letter C, 1/4 would be the reduced fraction. Letter D, 75%. And I kind of gave the answer away there. It'd be 75/100ths, but then they're both divisible by 25. You could divide this one by 25, divide this one by 25. You'd end up with 3/4. So letter D would be 3/4 as the reduced fraction. Letter E, 20%. You'd have 20 over 100, which equals, in this case, I could take the tens out of it, and I'd end up with 2/10, but then I have to recognize they're both divisible by 2. That'd be 1/5 for the final reduced fraction of 20%. And letter F, 1%. 1% is the same as 1 over 100, which is equal to 1 over 100. That one can't be reduced. So you're done. All right, letter G through L says write each percent in problems G through L as a decimal number. Wow. Okay, so this one is so incredibly easy. Let me even just do letter G for you, just so you know how easy it is. I'm going to write 65, and then I move the decimal from this position where it starts, and it kind of gives you a little pointer here. It says go this direction 2 times. So the decimal would be right in this position, and that would be it. My digital pen just went wild on me there. So it'd be right here, 65/100ths. Letter H, 7%. Should be 7/100ths. Letter I, 30%. Should be 30/100ths, which is the same as 3/10. I'd say this would be the best choice unless you're talking about money. 8%. This would be the same as 8/100ths. 60%. Be the same as 6/10 or 60/100ths. 1% should be 1/100th. Okay. Mentally find 10% of 350 and describe how to perform the mental calculation. So if I know that 10% is the same as 1/10 and I'm multiplying that, I just know that I have to divide by 10. And if I'm dividing by 10, I'm just removing 1 0 off of this or moving the decimal over. So I know the answer to this is going to be 35. And I just described your mental calculation there for you. Letter N, mentally find 25% of 48. Describe how to perform the mental calculation. So again, I know here's how I'd be thinking through this. I know this is 1/4 as a fraction. I know that means 1 times 48 divided by 4. 48 divided by 4 I know is going to be 12 in this case, it'd be 12. So that'd be my final answer. Letter O, how much money is 8% of $15? This one is not a mental math problem, so I'm just going to work that out. Let me put that down here. So 8% as a decimal would look like this, and if I was going to multiply it times $15, I just put that up here. I'm going to multiply that. That's going to be 40. This is 8 plus 4 makes 12. And then I move the decimal over 2 places. So it's $1. It's $1.20 for the tax, basically, is what they're looking at there. So that one would be $1.20 is what 8% of $15 is. Letter P. The sales tax rate is 9.5%. Estimate the tax on a $9.98 purchase. How did you arrive at your answer? All right, so for letter P, since it says estimate, I'm going to round this to 10%, and 10% is the same as 1/10. I'm going to round this to $10. And if I want to do 10% times $10, I would know that that's going to be $1. So the sales tax rate would be approximately $1, and that's what it's asking. Estimate the tax, so I would estimate the tax to be $1 because I'm rounding those before I actually multiply them. When you're estimating, you want to make your work easier. You don't want to make it harder by actually doing $9.98 times 9.5%, which is the same as 0.095. And then it's just, you'd end up with too much work there. You have to round this. I'm going to go to the nearest 10% there and the nearest 10 there. Letter Q. Erica sold 80% of her 30 baseball cards. How many cards did she sell? So 80%, if I remember from one of my examples there, was 4/5. And if I don't remember, I know that it was 80 over 100. That could be reduced to 8/10, and 8/10 could be reduced to 4/5. So 4/5 times 30, that could be translated into this, 30 over 5 times 4. I could just flip these, do a little flippity flop there, and I have 30 divided by 5, which is the same as 6, and 6 times 4 in that case. So this would be 24 is how many cards. So the answer is 24 cards is how many she sold, since she sold 80% of the 30. If it asked how many she didn't sell, I would have to take that 24 and I have to subtract it from the 30 to find out how many she didn't sell. She still had 6 cards remaining. But it didn't ask how many she didn't sell. It asked how many she sold. All right, that's it for today. Nice job. Thanks for paying attention. If you missed something, don't forget to rewind and check it over. And we'll see you tomorrow.